my name is Chaya Morali. I'm a pediatric genetics physician at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, Texas, and I've had the pleasure of working with Tango 2 families for almost 5 years now. And so I'd love for you to introduce yourself as well.
I'm Ashley Wiley. I am the mother to a daughter with Tango 2 disease, and her name is Aislinn.
Okay. So what we wanted to kind of hear first from you is sort of what is Aislinn's Tango 2 story and how did it begin?
So Aislinn's is a little different, I feel like, than other kids with Tango 2.
Uh-huh.
She was developing pretty normally. I kind of can't tell like how she is now without the beginning. We
Sure.
had no idea she had this disease. She was born perfectly healthy, so we thought, up until 14 months of age. The only thing that was kind of off was that she wasn't walking on her own yet.
Mm-hmm.
She was still walking around, like she'd hold our ottoman or our couch. She could
Mm-hmm.
still bear weight through her legs and stuff. She just wasn't walking yet. Which again, she was only 14 months old.
Right.
I know the United States is um, pretty strict. Like you're delayed if you're not walking it by one. But in other countries, like over in Europe, technically they're not even developmentally delayed until they don't start walking until like 18 months or even 2 years.
Yeah,
So,
it's 15 months, I think that usually the kind of rule of thumb here. But yeah, it's a little
so
bit.
and our pediatrician wasn't worried about it or anything.
Mhm.
He did have what Dr. Miyake, I believe, referred to it as a spell. We
Yeah.
think she had a spell a week before she actually went into her crisis. We were in Disney World.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and so we were just there for a week. Typically, we're pretty on a routine here at our house. They wake up at the same time. We have breakfast, we have lunch, we have dinner, we start our bedtime routine. We're very much onto a routine, and I think that's really what kept Aislinn out of a crisis for so long, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, Disney World was our first big trip that we had taken as a family, so we were driving in the car overnight. We were eating out a lot, which that's not typical for our family. We were always having somewhat healthier options here at our house. And then so one day at one of the parks, she was very fussy. We couldn't get her to take a nap in her stroller.
Mm-hmm.
And she fell asleep in like her carrier. I had her in like a backpack carrier.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just kind of like she fell asleep, but like her head was just, I don't know, she just seemed like she was a little more floppy than normal. But
Uh-huh.
again, we thought maybe it could have just been that because she was cutting like four teeth at the time. So she was teething. We've taken her
Mm-hmm.
out of routine. Disney is exhausting. It was
Yeah.
hot there. Um, so we just kind of thought maybe
Chalked it up
that,
to that. Yeah.
yeah. So then, we came back home and that was fine. Like after that day, she ended up sleeping really good that night and was perfectly fine the next day. So
Mm-hmm.
in our heads, everything's fine. And we really weren't
Mm-hmm.
even that worried that day. It's not like anything felt like super off where we would need to like rush her to the emergency room because I think like maybe a half an hour later, she woke up and we ate lunch and she was perfectly fine. Um,
Right.
but that's the only thing that we could think of like right before her crisis that was off. So Dr. Miyake kind of said, well, maybe that could have been like a metabolic spell.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm trying to shorten this.
That's okay.
I was at the hospital with our other daughter because she had Kawasaki disease, totally unrelated, but I was
Yeah.
at the hospital with our daughter Adelaide. My husband and I, we were going to switch. He was going to
Mm-hmm.
come to the hospital to see Adelaide. I wanted to go home to see Aislinn, um, and he needed to come to the hospital so we could trade off.
Mm-hmm.
So I had called him and I was like, "Hey, has Aislinn woke up from her nap yet?" And he said, "No, not yet." She had woke up fine that morning, was eating her breakfast. And then he laid her down for like an earlier nap. Wasn't like too much earlier than her normal nap time. Um, and she was asleep for 3 hours. And I was like, "Well, hey, I need you to go ahead and wake her up and head to the hospital." And when he went to wake her up, she wouldn't wake up. So somehow from that morning at like 8:30 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
to noon, he had already went into her crisis and her blood sugar started dropping.
Mm-hmm.
Because when he went to like wake her up, she was completely like would not open her eyes. She was making noises, she was breathing, but she
Right.
wouldn't up. And then when he went to lift her up, he noticed that she was very floppy.
Hmm.
Like, and I don't like to say it, but it felt like she was dead.
Mm.
Like her body was just completely limp. Again, she
Wow.
was breathing,
Right.
she was kind of making noises. Um, so a doctor had just so happened to be walking in at the hospital where I was with our other daughter. And I
Mhm.
had asked them, I was like, hey, totally unrelated. Our other daughter is at home. She's not waking up. What do we do? And he's like, well, is she breathing? And we kind of did all the signs. He pinched her foot. She reacted to it, but not like she didn't wake up. So he's
Yeah.
like, bring her in as fast as you can.
Right.
So he did. And then when I got her out of her car seat when they got to the hospital, I knew something was wrong. Like,
Mhm.
just she did not feel right. So we rushed into the emergency room, um, and they took her from me, and we went into this room, and they noticed that she was her blood sugar was extremely low. It had dropped to under 10.
Wow.
Yeah, so extremely low. That's why, she has all of the brain damage. That
Mhm.
whole time that she was napping, it was just depleting the nutrients from her brain, and we had no idea. To us, she
Yeah.
was taking a nap.
Yeah.
So that's basically kind of how we got to the hospital. They transferred her to the ICU.
Mhm.
And then that's when it kind of started like, okay, well, why did her blood sugar drop?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to like come in now and like ask me another question or
Well, I guess my question is, how did you get from her blood sugar got really low while she was taking a nap to, okay, okay, she has Tango 2? Did they figure that out during the first hospitalization, or did it take a while? What was the process
it was
there?
it was during that hospitalization, but it took 2 weeks. They were doing like every test they could possibly think
Uh-huh.
of what could be causing this. Why did her blood sugar drop? They were asking us if anybody in our family was a diabetic. Could she have gotten
Right.
into insulin? All of these things. And we're like, no, no, I don't think so. And they thought maybe it could have been some kind of viral sickness, disease, or that we picked up from Disney and brought back, and maybe she just had like a delayed reaction to it.
Mhm.
But they were just doing all kinds of testing, and then finally nothing was making sense. So then that's when we did the exome, like the genetic sequencing,
Yeah.
and then they did a rushed test, so it came
Mhm.
back like 10 days later, and then that's when it appeared that she had Tengu too.
Okay. And when you learned about it, did the doctors who told you about the diagnosis know about it? Was it their first time encountering it? Tell me about that.
Yeah, that nobody's ever heard of it. Honestly, every visit now, if I have like I meet a new doctor or a new nurse, they're like, Tango 2, I've never even heard of that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
most people haven't. It's pretty rare. But actually the first person that told us she had Tango 2 was the nurse.
Mm.
We were walking into her ICU room, because she was in the hospital for 2 months with her crisis. And that's the only crisis that she's ever had. Was that one.
Yeah.
Thank God. But when we walked in, there just so happened to be a nurse coming out, and I was like, "Yeah, apparently we have a diagnosis." And she's like, "Yeah, it's called Tango 2." So my husband and I, we started googling it.
Yeah.
That was pretty devastating to see because right when you Google Tango 2, it's the literature does not look good.
Right.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of big fancy words that says really bad things, and we didn't really know what to do with it. But we did find like the Tango 2 Research Foundation page, and we saw these success stories of these other kids that are living with Tango 2 and they're riding a bike and doing things, and
Yeah.
that kind of restored our hope. Like, okay, maybe this isn't a death, like not death wish, but
That sentence sort of.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how that went.
Tell me about, you mentioned that before the crisis, Aislinn was developing typically. She was a perfectly healthy baby as far as you could tell. What was she
Yeah.
like afterward? What is she like now?
Now she is severely disabled.
Okay.
She does rely on us for every aspect of her life. She is fed through a feeding tube continuously throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she can't sit anymore. She can't crawl. She is confined to her wheelchair or other adaptive seats.
Okay.
She has an adaptive swing. She has a stander. We're starting to work on possibly trialing a gait trainer to see if she can maybe start like inputting some weight through her legs and actually like feeling it. Like
Yeah.
she loves her stander, but she can't move her legs in it, and I think that is kind of holding her back a little bit and making
Sure.
a little bit more process. But she goes to preschool.
Okay.
And she loves it. She's actually made a ton of progress
Good.
starting preschool. Um, and I really think that's why she's doing so well now, is because of that repetition and just the
Mhm.
stimulation that she receives at school every day.
Interacting with the other kids and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, I think just like the noises,
Mhm,
like you and I, we hear
mhm.
something, we look at it.
Yeah.
We have the neck and trunk control to do that. Aislinn doesn't.
Right.
So when she hears
Right.
a voice and wants to look at it, that's helping her motor plan, her neck and trunk control. There's so many things that we don't realize that we like move every day.
Yeah,
But
for
for
sure.
Aislinn, she's kind of starting back at like being a newborn baby, you
Yeah.
know, um, with how bad her brain damage was. So she's kind of
Mhm,
had to relearn everything, but we're
mhm.
not even to that point yet. But she is making really good progress.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. How
Yeah.
long has it been since, she had her crisis? How old is she now?
She is 3.
Okay.
She had a crisis at 14 months old. So it's been a little over 2 years
Okay.
since her crisis.
Now you mentioned you have an older daughter. Once you found out that that Aislinn had Tango 2, did you get your other daughter tested, or do you have other children since then?
We did get our other daughter tested. She's only a carrier of it. Just
Okay.
like my husband and I. And no, we don't have any more kids, and we do not plan on having any more kids,
Mhm.
which we already knew that before the Tango 2 diagnosis. So that didn't really affect our decision to not have any more kids. That was already a predetermined thing.
Yeah. Now, of course, it's obvious that, Aislinn having Tango 2 has affected your life in so many significant ways. And you talked about a lot of the changes. You mentioned some of the challenges, of course. What are some of the positive changes, if there are any?
Well, I don't know if this is necessarily like appropriate.
Mm.
But we have found our faith with Aislinn. We have definitely really realized that it's a miracle that Aislinn is even alive. Most people, if their blood sugar would have dropped that low, they would have died.
Sure.
So honestly, I really just feel like she's being used in a way to just inspire other people and bring people to the Lord. And that just is really motivating for our family.
Hmm.
It's not a religious aspect. I feel like it's brought our family closer.
Yeah.
We are really determined to like make the most out of each moment. We know now that not every day is promised. So we really try to make sure we're very in the moment with our children, not distracted by our phones or um, I don't know, just being really present
Yeah.
day to day and just being appreciative. Like, I don't know, it's her whole lives have just been kind of changed. Like now I'm grateful for doing laundry. You know what I mean? Because I'm
Yeah.
just happy that I am in that I'm able to do that. I'm happy that I can walk. Aislinn can't walk, you know what I mean? So like
Right.
I'm just it just kind of changed our whole aspect and just outlook on life.
You've had a lot of positive reframing, I guess.
Oh, definitely. That is the perfect terminology to
Yeah.
say.
Tell me, and you were talking earlier when we were all chatting ahead of before the interview about the Tango 2 family and the connections you've made through that. Tell me a little bit about how that has been for you.
So I have not actually met
Hmm.
anybody in person yet. But from the second we got Aislinn's diagnosis, we were told that there was like a Facebook support group for it, which was amazing to know
Hmm.
that there's a place that we can go and like talk. And
Yeah.
honestly, I feel like the Tango 2 like family has honestly helped our daughter's progress. Like we've always anytime I have a question like, hey, what kind of seizure meds is your child on? Maybe there's different seizure meds that work with metabolic diseases than this and this.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's helped. She was on a medication called I think it was trileptal.
Yeah,
Um
that's the name of a med, yeah.
and another child didn't do so well on it.
Hmm.
So I brought that information to her neurologist. We took her off that med and replaced it with another one that another Tango 2 mom recommended. And now
Hmm.
she's doing amazing. Just things like that. Uh, or like kind of calmed my nerves. Like, oh, if my daughter's doing this like shaking thing with her foot, is that Tango 2 related or do I need to take her to the emergency room? Stuff like
Yeah.
that. It's
Yeah.
just been able to have that support, honestly, even just emotionally and mentally, being able to just be like, hey, this stinks. I'm really struggling right now. Can you guys give me some kind of positivity? And everybody, it's within, and it's kind of nice that we're all scattered around the world because no matter when I post, somebody always responds within like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I bet that's nice.
it is nice. It's cool. So I'm really looking forward to meeting everybody in person
Yeah.
at
I
this
think
conference.
yeah, me too. I think it's really just really special the community that y'all have built and the support is so important for people with rare diseases.
It is. It is. And this is like rare of the rare, you know?
Right?
Like
Exactly.
I can't believe that there's even a Facebook group for it, you know? I
Yeah, it's
just
pretty amazing.
it is. It is. But
Yeah.
that was definitely like a light knowing that there was a support group when we got her diagnosis. Like, okay, well, at least there's somebody else I can talk to about it.
Yeah,
Because not even
absolutely.
the doctors don't, you know, anybody at that hospital has never even heard of it. So being able to just like talk to families that have
Hmm.
personally walked through the same walk that we are was
Yeah,
just really comforting.
right. Well, it's been so interesting and useful to hear about your story. And I want to thank you for sharing all this information about your family and about Aislinn. And I'm hopeful that Aislinn will continue to make a lot of progress.
Thank you. I did want to add
Please.
I guess just one more thing. Um I think that I don't know, one of the questions I think Kasha had sent me was I don't know like what's something that um I don't know how she worded it. Like prevention, you know, was there anything that I could
Yeah. Or like early diagnosis or
yes,
awareness. Tell me about that. Yeah.
I really honestly feel like the only way Jacob and I, my husband is Jacob, that we would have known anything was wrong with her is if we had like her DNA tested at birth. We would have
Hmm.
known like, oh well, she's waking up in the middle of the night, you know, and we give her a bottle. Maybe that wasn't just her wanting a bottle. What if her blood sugar was dropping because she was fasting? You know, like
Hmm.
there's things that happened through her first year of life that could have definitely been just chalked up to, oh, that's normal toddler stuff. She's teething.
Right.
You're weaning her from a bottle. She needs to learn to sleep overnight and, you know, soothe herself back to sleep. But as a, you know, a Tango 2 child, their blood sugar could have been dropping. Maybe their muscles really hurt. So
Mhm.
I feel like a good goal would just be able to expand the newborn panel, whether that is having actual full genome sequencing at birth, which I know is time consuming and expensive, but it would save so many lives.
Mhm.
Just having that diagnosis and to just know like the early signs of like the diagnosis that your child has.
Yeah.
Um, or just being able to test for more metabolic and mitochondrial diseases. Cause I just feel like I honestly feel like a lot of these like diseases are linked to SIDS. I feel like a lot of like
I think
babies
you're
that
right.
pass from SIDS, they probably don't have that full genome sequencing, and it's just well, we don't have an answer, so they died from SIDS.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. I don't think a lot of geneticists agree with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just I don't know. I wish it would be possible to like have that extended option of testing at birth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, but
I think so too.
that's really it.
Well, thank you for sharing that too. I think that's a really important piece of information. And I wonder if, knowing Aislinn's diagnosis earlier, you could have started B vitamins earlier, and maybe that may have changed the
And that's
outcome of her
I I
crisis.
I wish we could have done that, you know. But I definitely think that has helped so many kids. Like just knowing that one little vitamin has helped so many kids stay out of crisis.
Hmm.
Definitely helped our Aislinn. I feel like she's only had one crisis, thank
That's
goodness.
true.
And I definitely think that that's helping for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for spending some time and sharing stuff with us. I think we've got all the stuff we need for today.
Okay. All righty, thank you.
Thank you.